Hello everyone! We have a new firmware ready for the Modor DR-2 here, OS5. Let's have a look at it. Just a little remark, OS5 has already been superseded by OS6 at the moment. That contains just a few minor bug repairs. But the main upgrade introduces a few easy shortcuts, some small improvements, but more important, 2 new drum models and a distortion and tilt filter section. Let's start with the smaller items. You can now immediately save the pattern or the drum set you are working on by keeping the pattern and or the drum set button down and hitting record to immediately save your work. You can also immediately reload your active work from memory by keeping again pattern or drum set and or drum set down and hitting play to reload. The record and play buttons also have a new copy-paste function now for pattern bars and for drum set instruments. Keep one of the pattern bar buttons down and hit record to copy. Keep another one down and hit play to paste. Same thing for drum instruments. Keep a drum instrument button A to F down, hit copy, keep another one down and hit paste. Also, the DR2 now shows the LEDs for both alpha and beta drum hits together. And then when you hold down the alpha or the beta button, you see which drum hit goes where. Before you only saw the alpha or the beta drum hits depending on the context, which unnecessarily complicated things, of course. Also, the parameter inspection has been improved a little. Keep the drum set button down and turn a knob to check its parameter value without altering it. That also works now for the modulation buttons. So for example, keep the drum set button down and hit random to see the randomization parameter and its randomization sensitivity. But then, the more serious things. There are 2 new drum models. The first one is a glass bottle model that mimics more or less the idea of hitting a glass bottle with a drumstick or something. And there is a string bass drum model. And the string bass drum has 2 important properties. It creates a controllable amount of even harmonics in the sound with the so-called asymmetry parameter. The original triangle wave oscillator can be skewed a little with this parameter, which introduces a certain amount of even harmonics. It was by comparing the DR2 drum sounds to bass drum sounds from vintage analog machines and stuff, that we saw that we were sometimes missing a few of these even harmonics. It is of course rarely a good idea to start making a bass drum sound from a sawtooth wave because it contains way too much even harmonics. But on a digital synth, the mathematically perfect triangle or square waves do not contain any even harmonics at all, while it seems that the real sweet spot is sometimes a bit in between the two. The string bass drum also has a string sound. Sometimes on ethnic drums, for example, you see some kind of a wire or a string that is stretched over the bass, over the drum head, and that rattles along with the movements of the drum head. That inspired us to do something similar on the DR2 without realistically mimicking any ethnic drum or something, but we created a let's call it a tick generator that creates a little tick with every cycle of the main bass drum oscillator. This string sound has two parameters. There's a dry wet mix to mix it with the main bass drum oscillator, and there is a randomization parameter to randomize every single tick a little bit. And then the DR2 has gotten a distortion and tilt filter section now. Together with the compressor that completes the, we call it the after treatment section that the DR2 has for every channel separately. Sounds are generated by one of the 17 drum synthesis models, and then they go through a distortion, tilt filter, compressor section before being sent out to the outputs. The distortion is quite straightforward. Turn up the drive using the Shift and X knob. But the tilt filter may need a little more explanation. A tilt filter alters, let's say, the balance between the high and low frequencies in the sound. A bit like a bass treble controls on a hi-fi stereo, or the high and low controls on a channel strip on a mixing desk or something. But still, it's a bit different. A tilt filter really applies a slope, a certain frequency roll-off that's expressed in decibels per octave. When the tilt parameter, that's controlled using Shift and the Y knob, when the tilt filter parameter is in the center, the output is a mathematical numerical copy of the input, so nothing happens. But when you turn it a bit left or a bit right, a certain gentle roll-off is created in the frequency response of this filter. That's going from -6 decibels per octave up to +6 decibels per octave, with every possibility in between. So for example, if you want 1.5 decibel per octave frequency roll-off over the complete audio range, you need to put this parameter at plus or minus 16, more or less. We found the combination of a distortion and a tilt filter especially interesting. It is, of course, easy to turn up the drive for the distortion from a distortion unit to create all kind of mayhem sounds with all higher harmonics going all over the place. But it's not so easy to tame this and to keep this a bit under control, and that's where the tilt filter come in. The tilt filter makes the distortion very useful by keeping its high frequency content a bit under control. So that was a little overview of our new firmware upgrade for the DR2. It is ready for download at our website.